details, please, with your hosts, Emmanuel and Angela Williams, where we dive deeper into conversations with visionary entrepreneurs to discover what it takes to turn passion into purpose. Listen to real-world stories from self-starters and trailblazers, and discover strategies and innovations shaping a greener future. Whether you are a seasoned business person or just starting out, let this be your go-to resource for inspiration and actionable tips for success. Join us now as we create a brighter, greener future together.
Hello, and welcome to More Details, Please. I'm Angela Williams.
And Emmanuel Williams.
All right, so today's topic is one for the books. Unlearning bad habits to help you grow in business and in life. And we have three guests here with us today that are going to be sharing from their perspective, and I'm so excited that they are here. Our first guest is Roslyn Manley. Roslyn is a travel curator. She has written 3 books, and she's on 2 books, and she's on to her 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th book to come. We're so excited to have Roslyn in with us today. One thing I will say about Roslyn, which I think is important, is in addition to being an author, she's a strategist and a life coach. And her focus is intentional living, identity, and transformation. Roslyn, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, we're going to go ahead and hear from our guests. So, Emmanuel, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I want to thank our guests. And the thing that I love about our guests, as I did research on their backgrounds, is that each one of them is doing something to help other people. They're using their gifts and talents to help other people. And that's what this podcast is really about. It's really about finding your passion and then using it to help other people to make the world a better place. And I think that purpose is really important because as you align yourself with purpose, I've discovered in my journey is that that's where I find peace. That's where I find joy. That's where I'm able to manifest and attract abundance. And our topic today is really interesting because it's really about unlearning bad habits. And it's interesting in that my perspective in, doing research on my guests, kind of understanding what their profession is that habits are, you can have a habit when you are young. And as you grow, those very good habits could be turned into bad habits because our life is really all about expanding and growing. And learning and unlearning is a skill set. Learning and unlearning requires a certain amount of knowledge and wisdom and presence. And so it's a dance. Life is a dance between learning and unlearning. When to learn, when to take those lessons and then evolve and grow as we continue to evolve with our purpose. So I'm just kind of creating a framework in that this conversation could have some depth in that we have to go back and look at our past and determine what adjustments we have to make in order to learn and unlearn as we go into our future to make us a more aware, to make us a greater service, and to constantly evolve and improve as we grow and expand in this life that we're living. So I'm really excited about the conversation. I'm ready to get into more depth, into more details, because that's what this podcast is all about. And so that's pretty much my perspective as we enter into this podcast for today.
Thank you for that, Emmanuel. So we're continuing in our season theme of learning, or should I say, in this case, unlearning, because our topic today is definitely unlearning bad habits. I'm going to make a book recommendation, which most of you, if you followed me at all, you know that I believe in this book, and this is Atomic Habits. So once you unlearn a bad habit, why don't you pick up a new habit? So we're going to start with our very first guest today. Roslyn, so excited. It is your opportunity and your turn. So let's talk a little bit about you first. So tell us about Roslyn.
I am a mom, wife, and have been staying at home since my son was about 3 years old. He is autistic and a part of the neurodivergent community. So a situation happened where that did keep me home, where something happened to him. And that is what kind of sparked me to do work in the special abilities community. I don't like the word disability because who wants to be dissed, right? And I'm trying to get rid of that word. I think we all have special abilities. And I think some of us can hide us behind the doors of our own rooms. But when you are autistic or in the neurodivergent community, it is difficult for you to hide those behaviors and things like that. So it's more out front. So I think we all have something that, could be ridiculed for and everything. But that just led me down that road. And just staying at home helped me to understand behaviors a lot more. My son taught me humility and patience along with my husband because as a first time mother, it was kind of difficult, to understand where I was going. I was taking pictures of him and like showing him flashcards. I'm going to be a good mother. It's going to be, trying to do everything that you thought you're going to do different than your mother or whatever. Um, I found out very early that there was an issue. He wasn't speaking on anything he didn't know, and that's what led me down the road to be at home. But I just continued on going to school while I was at home, doing things to just better myself, not being in the work community in that capacity. But I have constructed, businesses and things like that, and that's where all these things expand and why I have so many things that I'm doing because I was trying to find something to do.
Got
Okay,
it.
basically.
Well, you've definitely done a lot, and you said a mouthful there, and I think it's really important that we can dig deeper in those
Right.
conversations because it's definitely none of us could never say we don't have some issues. I believe the biggest issue here is that bad habits, a lot of times you don't even realize you have them and how much
Right.
they're holding you back.
Of
And
course.
it really takes awareness for you to pick up on those habits to be able to unlearn them in the first place. So that awareness is key, right, Emmanuel?
Absolutely. And this is, as I listen to what you said you are a mother, you
Yes.
are a wife. Those are your top priorities. And I really appreciate that. And it's interesting because this podcast is about unlearning bad behaviors.
Yes.
And success is really about you defining what success is for you.
Right.
And the fact that you are a mother and you're focused on that, a wife, you're focused on that, and you're into your career and schooling and education, what I believe that you have defined was your own personal perspective about what success is to you. Because I think a lot of people get confused or get frustrated because they think success is what society perceives success as. That's
Absolutely.
not necessarily the case. So I can feel your energy, I can feel your spirit, I can feel your peace in that the best investment that you can make right now at this time that you will benefit for the rest of your life is focusing on your family, your kids, and your career and your husband. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and about bad behavior, like, I hate to put the word bad in front of things sometimes because I know it's a process. And being at home, I have 2 other children as well, and we didn't have more children until Chris didn't need us as much. So he was 6 years old before I started having more children, and so they're 6 and 9 years younger than him. And one thing that I understand about habits is that we all have a lot in life, and a lot of seeds are planted when we're children. And as children, you just kind of go by what is being taught or what you see or how you are perceiving the things. And so what happens is as you become older, and those are muscle memory things. When you create bad habits, that's muscle memory. And so once you start getting older, you start reconciling with the things you didn't understand were not good for you. And that's not saying that your mom or dad meant any harm to you. That's what they learned. And it's just a creative roadblock and a tumbling of things that keep being taught because that's what was known. It was out of love. But as the world changes, those things change as well. And so when you get older, you learn how the process is with planting seeds. You are the one who fertilizes and brings forth harvest because people plant seeds in our lives all the time, but you can choose what seed to fertilize and bring forth harvest once your mind is mature enough to understand that. And the way you understand that is with reconciliation. So those things just come about just like that. The
So let's talk
reconciliation.
more about that because that
Okay.
sounds like that is a chapter in your book. So
Yeah.
tell us about reconciliation, because it's almost like you have to die to the old you, or
Yes.
you have to reconcile the things that occurred in the past. And how do I live knowing that today? So let's talk a little bit more about that.
So
More details,
reconcil
please.
Sure. So I learned about reconciliation by doing that myself. Like, and I didn't even realize I was doing it because the muscle memory is there for how you're processing too. So what I had to start doing was being quiet, stop talking so much, and listen. So be an intentional listener. So, because hearing and listening are two different things. And so that's what I had to start doing. And once I started doing that and listening to people and understanding that just because they have a different way of doing things doesn't mean it's wrong. We just do things differently to get to the same point. I think we all have the same end result that we're trying to get to. We just have a process of getting there. Some people take the long way around. Some people have to go through bumps and bruises because pain is the catapult to understanding. And if you didn't have pain, you probably would just be in the same place all the time. And I thank God when I see that hard road coming, I say, "Oh Lord, I'm about to learn a whole lot." And I know I'm about to go through a whole lot because I'm going through this. And it says something about God doesn't put too much on you that you can bear. So that's the thing that I keep in my mind. And I know even though this is going to be painful, that something's coming on the end of that. And that reconciliation is there waiting for you. That's like a crossroad where you start to understand things you didn't understand as a child and why they happen. And then you reconcile right then. And then you have that crossroad to either go down the back road or you can keep going forward and don't become that pillar of salt by looking behind yourself. Only look behind to pull things forward to go forward.
Yeah. Wow.
I just love what you said and how you articulated it because our life is already, as far as I'm concerned, when we got here and showed up in this on this planet, God had already had a plan for us. We just have to figure out how to align ourselves with that positive energy and move in that direction of purpose. And so when you talked about God won't give you more than you can handle, another way for me that I thought about what you said was there is no good or bad, there's just a greater good. Because everything that's happening is happening to put us in a
Yes.
situation where we can continue to align ourselves with that higher God consciousness. And I think that that is a really key point to the guest on our show because each and every one of you have chosen to take a path that serve other people. So that's kind of how I perceive what you just said, that wisdom that you just dropped. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Your turn.
So intentional is basically what I was talking about your lot in life and the seeds that are planted and how you have to fertilize and bring forth harvest. And it's the same thing I teach my children. I'm like, yeah, somebody said that about you, but is that true? Are you trying to fertilize that seed and bring forth harvest of what they said about you? Or can you define yourself? And the thing about intentional living is basically you know what you want to do. Like be intentional in everything you do. In your listening, in your hearing, in your the five senses are it. You know, how we touch and feel and taste. Those are the things that help you to be intentional. I don't like how that tastes. You're intentional about what you eat. You're intentional about what you say. And my husband taught me a long time ago. We've been married 29 years.
Congrats.
Start with a positive, end with a positive, even though in the middle it might not feel so good. So you start with a positive, you know, you're a really, really beautiful person. Okay. And then you start by telling them, here's some of the things that I see. And then they may not like that and then end, but I know you're going to get there. So those are like starting with a positive, ending with a positive. That's intentional. And what I do is I don't let anybody move me to anger. What I do is I process. Processing it is key in communication. You have to be intentional in listening and then tell that person, even if it's a conversation, they want you to hurry up and, well, tell me what you feel. No, because if I tell you what I feel right now, it's not going to go really well. Because
Yeah.
I know how to put zingers in and I know how to get you real quick. That's easy. But what is hard is to be mute your tongue and be gird your tongue. And that's what I'm teaching my daughter right now. Gird your tongue, honey. Girding your tongue and not letting people move you to anger that 1 to 10 real quick. I don't believe in that. I believe you are should be intentional in what you say. So what I do is I write out how I feel, the curse words, everything, anything, how angry I am until I'm in a space to have an adult conversation with that person. So either we're going to go forth with how we can communicate and coexist together, or we can just, part ways. Or maybe, see you at dinner and stuff. That doesn't mean I can't have dinner with these people. That doesn't mean any of that. But the relationship, will be what it is. So
That is
that's
so funny that you said you actually process and you process through writing. I did that as a child. It
mm,
is so funny. The youngest girl of 9, I did that as a child. Every time, anybody. I'm telling you, yes, I used to write out everything. Now, I used to tear it up
mhm,
because I got 9 people in the house, plus my mom
right.
and my stepdad. So, of course, they were going to read it. But I used to write it out and then tear it up. So, avoiding hard conversations is a bad habit.
Hmm.
You convince yourself that magically they're going to resolve themselves. But if you have a process, then you could address that bad habit. So creating a new, better habit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree totally in that. Yeah, I just basically you have to live before you write. And so all the bad stuff, I write about it all. And then I reconcile with all of those things and try to bring out how I reconcile with those things to kind of put out, something for people to read. I don't think that when people read my things that they're going to think the same thing I think. I think they're going to read that and look into their life and see how it applies to them. And I don't tell people what to do in my book. I just give you a like, well, consider this. It's a way that you put words in, and people are, very protective of their hearts and protective of who they are. And some people quickly will say something to you because it's a protective mechanism. And I had to learn that even about, people in my life, that they go off on people or say things derogatorily because it's a protective mechanism. And I don't take any of that stuff personal because I have reconciled with why that is. I understand that this person is not like that. They got some pain. So let me find out what that is. I don't even think about what they say because I know that's not me. I know they're not talking about me. I know who I am. Let me just say this. You never fully know who you are because life happens. And with every conversation, it changes you. So,
Well,
Yeah.
no, I was just saying wisdom is the
yes.
ability to create space. And it
Yes.
sounds like you have had an awakening in a way where you have been able to connect to a deeper dimension to who you are, to be able to step outside of the thoughts and emotions and the reactions that you have to everyday regular living and have enough awareness to be able to see so that you won't react based on your past conditioning, but you can respond based on the love and based on being in that space. Because in that space is where God's whisper. And in that space is the unknown. And to be able to live and to dance into that space
Yes.
and be able to be in a human form and to be able to be in that space, that's the dance of life because we are humans and we are beings. And so the knowledge and the journey that you're on, it is a constant dance in your evolution as a person that has a God conscious and a human being serving a greater good that's bigger than yourself.
Yes, sir.
That is key. And you described a bad habit that we all want to unlearn. Adopting that everything is terrible. Everything is wrong. Letting every tough moment or contrast moment convince you that the whole world is falling apart. That is a very bad habit, and that is one that needs to be unlearned by us all. I,
Yep.
I, I think about that all the time. That is not generally my mindset. But when it comes about and try to sneak up, like you said, when
Yeah.
something is about to happen and I know it's going to be rough now, I have to prepare myself and say, I'm going to learn a whole lot from this, but it may hurt in the middle. I'm going to end with joy in the end. So that was a
Exactly.
great sandwich analogy. And we're going to hear more about sandwich analogies as well.
Yeah.
So, Raza, what else would you like to share with our listeners so that they can know, one, how to get in touch with you, but also they can understand how intentional living, intentional listening, intentional everything is important to their life and being the better version of themselves?
Yes. So with every individual, that reconciliation is basically the catapult to a lot of people's crossroads and where they're going to go from there. But they also need, like you said, this is about mentorship. They need those mentors, people to help them along the way, not like tell them what to do, but consider this. You said this. Is this what you really want? What do you plan to do to get to that point? And how do you plan to, unlearn? That's what that learn part is it. Where did you learn that from? Did the person that taught you that, what do you think they meant by that? Do you think that they learned that? Is that something? that you want to continue to teach your children? How are you feeling about that? How's that working for you? Those are, you just have to ask so many questions, and it kind of has to be in front of the person to understand kind of who they are. And I'm very intuitive in that way. And when I'm talking to people, if I do say something, that's because I love you. Because people that, I don't really have that relationship with, it's not a lot coming out of my mouth. So, but I have to also understand who they are in their feelings. And I kind of do know what they've kind of been through. I remember a lot of things about you, Angela. And I did bring that up to let you know I always paid attention. And that's what I've always done. I was a quiet child, and I processed a lot as a child. I didn't write a lot. I didn't even know I was a writer at all. But I do get that. There is one person, I think, Drika Gates. She does that. She writes out things and then she burns them. She writes out her emotions and then she burns them to let them go into the world, the earth, and whatever. And now it's done. She's still going to process some things, but she at least got it out into the world. Just intentional. That just says a lot. That word intentional, that means you know why you're saying something. If you don't know why you're saying something, that's not intentional. That's a bad habit that you need to figure out how to break. That's when I say intentional. Those things mean something. They mean that you are paying attention, that you are involved in the conversation fully, that you are receiving fully. That's with all your five senses. And so where you can find me. So my website is eatsipandip.com. And so I own a travel agency currently. I have two daughters that are going to school in travel technology and AI, and one is going in tourism. So to add to that company and everything. So believe in ancestry. It is said that we don't have culture by a lot of people as Black people because of how we came over. But I would veer to say that we are the culture that people use to build and make money and do so many things. So ancestry, when you take your ancestry and you find out where you came from, I do trips to take you to where those places are so you can kind of see where you came from. Is it going to build you? Yes, it is. It's going to build you. Some of those things you might see right over there that are a part of you, innately in you, and things of that nature. You can watch them on videos all day, but until you go over there and to see how the individuals who have been there are living and know where you came from, and then that becomes a part of you and you feel more whole about your culture and things of that nature. So you can find me at eatsipandip.com. That's EATSIPN as in Nancy, DIP.com. My books can be found on that same website, Eat, Sip, and Dip /Ghostface Writer, GHOSTFACEWRITER.com, Ghostface Writer. That's where you can find my books. I'm currently writing my last book of this book series, which is called Living This Life to Die a Good Death. So that really means that being intentional, that's where the word intentional comes from. Are you living this life to die a good death? And some people think that's morbid. So are you trying to live this life to die a bad death? I don't know. But living this life to teach our children how to put your house in a trust, how to, why it's important to put your house in a trust, giving them the answer, the in-between answer, not just telling them what to do, but why you're doing it, why you're telling them that they should consider doing those things. Why are we on social media asking for money to bury people? Why aren't you proactive in those things? Why don't you have insurance for yourself? Those things are what living this life to die a good death is partly about. But the reconciliation portion, like I specified before, and all of those things. So
That
you can
is
find me at
wonderful.
eSip and Dip on every platform.
Awesome. Roslyn, thank you so much. We're so happy that you were here with us. Stay on the line. We're going to pick up, guys, with our next guest, and you will hear from Roslyn again just a bit later. So if we can just go ahead and take a quick break, we'll be right back. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to More Details, Please, presented by Emmanuel and Angela Williams from Detail Experts, the mobile steam cleaning company dedicated to protecting the planet. Be sure to subscribe to More Details, Please on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow us on Facebook at Detail Experts and visit detailexperts.net. That's DETAILXPERTS.net. We hope you've gained some valuable insights from our conversations today. Stay driven by curiosity, and we'll bring you more details next time.